boring old office. But you have two side lights. There's nothing back here.
The void.
I'm definitely down in the kitchen. I'm in the dining room at the moment because the office, if I'm upstairs, I'll wake the kids up by like laughing at me arse off on Wednesday.
Jez, what time is it there?
9 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
And I think we're live, everybody.
Oh, hey. Oh, I didn't even notice. Yeah, live right there in the corner of my own window, in fact. Hey, everybody, welcome. Everybody come in. Welcome to The Path to Publishing. This is what it takes to become a new lit RPG author. So I am, yeah, well, pretty much. I mean, we all are. Obviously, we're here. I'm Jay Baraz, moderating this. I'm also an aspiring author, so that's why Geneva stuck me on this panel. And I'm going to let all these guys introduce themselves because some of them I haven't read their stuff yet, other than Jez, and he's a psychopath. We all know him. So go ahead, TJ. Tell us what you got going on here.
Oh, hey, everyone. So I'm TJ Lombardi. I'm also an aspiring author, brand new author that no one has heard of. But I am writing the Dying Breed series. I actually just finished editing, once again, manuscript for book number 1. And hopefully later today, that manuscript will be going to John Baker, a literary agent out of the UK, who agreed to receive it for review. So we're going to be starting the traditional process to see where we go. And then manuscript for book number 2 is also written, and we're going to be editing that in January. So hopefully we'll have some good content for you guys coming out in 2023.
Hi, Kristen. All right.
Hey, Kristen.
Hey, Chris.
All right, keep on going, Sean. What do you got?
Hi, I'm Sean Fletcher. I actually write YA fantasy, but I've gone to 2 Dragon Cons and been unofficially inducted by the Lit RPG group. They kind of like absorbed me into their horde. So,
inducted or infected?
A little bit of both, I think.
There was alcohol and abuse involved, so
yeah,
I think
I was really
that's standard.
Infected. I was just reacting because TJ had like a similar manuscript. I'll print mine out as well, so I saw that. But yeah, anyway, I write YA fantasy. I've got a few series out on Amazon: Heir of Dragons, Darkness Within, Paranormal Outcasts, and I also write middle grade fantasy. I'll be on the panel later for writing for kids. So when TJ said traditional, I'm also doing that path at the moment. But I self-publish on my YA, so I have a lot of experience in that way. So thanks for all being here.
All right, Eric.
I'm Eric Ugland. I write the Good Guys and the Bad Guys series. I've been a full-time writer since about 2014 and have published in a bunch of different genres. And I guess as far as traditional publishing go, I have a traditional publisher for my audiobooks.
Awesome. So Eric's been writing for a while, and then of course we got Jez right here.
I've been around since about 2020, April 2020. I launched the first one. I've got 3 different series out, all published under myself, my company. Do the audio with Podium and with Tantor. So I do sort of have somebody else to do the audio side of things rather than doing that as well as my own stuff. I'm just totally freaked out by the fact that TJ has actual paper for his manuscript.
Wow,
what the hell's going on there?
There's been so much money that has been spent on printing this thing over and over again. But, you know,
for a kid so young, man, hard copy, that's like
there's something magical about it, though. I tell you what, there's like it gives you a different perspective.
So here's the thing, you know, like for a kid so young, I am not that young. My joints tell me I'm like 60.
Well, you need to roll them tighter.
Okay, so you look like you're about 28. So
doing all these edits and stuff, it's one of those things where I can preserve it, you know, and hopefully in the future I would love to like take pieces of the manuscript that have been edited and like send that out to fans and say, hey, here's a piece of like what was actually worked on and stuff like that. So, but yeah,
you do
28.
the old school
I wish I was 28.
Cut and paste where you take some scissors, cut it out, put it somewhere else with tape.
Like the original typewriters and stuff like that. Oh man,
jeez!
I wrote a novel on a typewriter once.
Wow!
On purpose? I also use it for like my serial killer letters, so that police can try to track me down.
I'm all about the Google Docs right now, man. So.
The typewriter sounds like an exercise in masochism.
Kind of was.
Brian, I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, turmeric and ibuprofen, they're both my friends right now, so.
Generally use alcohol for me.
Wait, was there a joint joke? I missed that.
Yeah, It's all right.
Yeah.
It was
Hey,
quick.
joints are
I'm
never
not a
jokes,
sex life,
man.
though.
My new friend
Weed is
Brian.
serious business.
Hopefully, I'll get to see him in Vegas here pretty soon. So,
He's good fun as Brian. He's good fun.
honestly, I just want to call him and have him like talk to me as I'm falling asleep because his voice is just so beautiful.
There's so many good narrators out there for stuff. It's gonna be hard for me to pick the one I want to work with.
Definitely.
All right, hey, so our first question has popped up here. How difficult is it to find a good editor in publishing? So let's start with TJ. What do you?
Man.
Since you're still getting in yours. So.
Yeah, so it was really hard knowing where to trust to go to find the answer to that. And the fact is that you're trying to build trust with someone and find legitimacy in their work. So when I started looking for an editor, I did not sleep for 2 days in all reality, because I found I started with a Facebook group. I need an editor, or I think it was, something like that. And I just put it out there. Hey, I need an editor and this is what I'm looking for. And I mean, I think I had 69 people either comment, private message me, shoot me emails. And so these are people from all over the world. And, I'm sending them a test manuscript. One of the things that I did different was I did not send them chapter 1. I sent them chapter 11, and I put them in the middle of the book, and I wanted to see how well they could adapt to like a problem, a challenge. And I had some people that wrote back right away and just said, oh, I normally start with chapter 1. And I was like, okay, if you can't be able to have some resiliency with me, because there's going to be times where our schedules are going to be challenging.
Yeah.
There's going to be things. So that instantly like kicked them off to the side. There was other things where people were like, oh, look at our website, look at social media. So there was 1 or 2 people. I would look at their social media, and instantly I just was like, you know what? I'm not saying that I don't necessarily agree with what you're posting, but there was things that I was kind of immediately turned off on. Some people's websites were just really professionally done, but they didn't have a lot of content on their previous work. Whereas other people had a ton of their work listed with their experience, but it wasn't as refined. So I actually liked that, because I was like, if they're so busy that they can't necessarily refine the website, then that means that they really have a lot of more experience and they're diving into the manuscript. So the editor I picked is Catherine Dunn out of the UK, and I absolutely loved the amount of work she had, but also she was writing me like page-long emails back. So I'm getting a lot of context from her. I'm getting a lot of insight from her, and the communication was just so well that it immediately built that trust gap. And the other thing too was she wasn't the most expensive. She was kind of on the lower end of the pay scale as other people had bid. So for me, at least, I gave her a bonus at the end of the manuscript because of how much she accommodated me and everything else. So that was like, I had probably a 10 different metric system that I used to look through the editor, but seriously did not sleep for 2 days because of all the feedback and communication.
I guess I'll just jump in second.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
no worries.
So yeah, jump in.
So I have a little. So I actually work half of my job, or I guess a third of my job. I do work as a professional editor on a couple sites like Readsy, which is a site I recommend for some authors to go check out. I work with the editorial department as an editor there, kind of on their roster. But then as an author, yeah, I also look out for editors, and I kind of have a different approach to it. So on the books that I traditionally publish, I do go get an editor that is worked in traditional publishing, because they typically have a little bit more of an idea of kind of that mentality. But much like TJ said, it's really kind of feeling them out. I think a really important thing to understand about working with an editor is it is a relationship. And so not only do they need to work with your schedule, work with your timing, and they understand that you have kind of a publishing schedule, but it's also they understand the vision of the book. But there's been many books and many editors that I went through, especially in the earlier years, where I'll send them my book, I'll get it back, and they just either it was on me, but really I think it was just they wanted a different kind of story, and they were really pushing that. And so it's important to find somebody that will push you. I don't think an editor that is gonna just clap their hands and everything's great and all good. I mean, they shouldn't try to find things wrong with it. But if they're really just like giving you a pat on the back, that's not good. But they also should not be just tearing the story apart and making it something it's not. and that does take time. I mean, TJ, you lost 2 days of sleep, and for some, it's probably, I mean, it's an ongoing process. I've gone through probably 3 or 4 I've been, these are over the course of like 5, 6, 7 years, but 3 or 4 different editors, just kind of finding that one. And sometimes just finding an editor for kind of a specific book. It's may not be like the last editor was bad. It's just this one needed this person with a little more experience. So be flexible with it, I think. And yeah, do your vetting, kind of see what works for you and what works for your process.
All right, Jazz, what do you got first on editors?
I've worked with 5, 6 editors now. I will actually just say as well, this reprobate up here, Sean, is involved in one of my projects, and I heartily recommend him. But I don't know what he's like as an editor, but that's a different story.
I'll pay you later, Jez. Thank you.
Thanks very much, man. Anytime. But no, seriously, I recommend personally different editors for different projects. I have a developmental editor who looks at the actual story, the way the story's laid out. If we need to change things, that's what Sean does for me. And another person, I have line and copy editors, and I have a continuity editor. So line and copy essentially go through and fix grammatical errors, because I used to be a welder, so I got hit in the head with steel a lot. So I'm crap with grammar.
God, that explains a lot.
Yeah, it explains so much, seriously. While continuity is basically coming down to, you said that he was 6'6" in this book. In the next book, you say he was 6'4". In the next book, you say he's 6'7", and then evening all that out. So details like that is massively important. I would say, however, and this is a conversation I've had with people quite recently, at the end of the day, you as the author need to remember, and this is the most important thing I will say on this, you are the employer. It is a relationship with the people that you are employing for this. It is a contract relationship. It's literally, you're hiring them to do a job. But if they do not do the job properly, if they will not do it professionally, you need to draw a line under it and you need to move on. I have worked with editors in the past that have been problematic. It's quite possibly been a mix of personality issues between us. It's just a case of certain people have reached out. I've wanted to work with them. I can't. Other people I would love to work with, and I haven't yet. I might do in the future. But at the end of the day, remember that anything they give to you, any work that anything you give them and they give it back to you, it is a suggestion. It is not, this is it. People will try to change things to match their own personal tastes, their own personal belief in what will make your story stronger. The difference is that your visualization for this story might be totally different. And you, over this amount of space, your character might be an arsehole, as people have said a lot about a lot of my characters. And by the end of it, he's still an arsehole. And they might want to change this, and they might want to go, well, let's just even him down a bit. Well, that's great. But for him to, when he hits this point, he needs to still be an arsehole, because that's part of who the story that's building. And if you change this, when he gets to that point, it's not going to make sense, and you're going to have to change it. You're going to have to adjust things. Believe in yourself. Anybody that gives you this advice is just giving you advice. You can choose to take it, you can not take it. But, I mean, yes, they are professionals. The grammar, things like that, they know far better than I do. But seriously, read over your edits and pick what you want to keep and what you don't. Agree with what you do and what you don't. At the end of the day, you've spent 3 months, 6 years, whatever it is, writing that book. They spend 2 or 3 weeks on it. They're never going to have the investment that you do. They are massively important, and they can, and I will not stress this enough, they can make your book far better. They can polish it and make it a gleaming thing that's wonderful compared to what it was that you sent them, but they can also fuck it up. So make sure you have a good relationship with them, and always remember this is your decision, and it is professional. If they cannot be professional and stick to deadlines and stick to things like that that are important, you need to basically say, thanks very much for your time, I'm moving on. It's a horrible situation, but I've spoken to a lot of people who say, oh, no, you just have to put up with it. And you don't. You're the employer. So that's my little rant. Sorry, guys.
No, that's what we're here for. It's to get all of your input on this. Now, did I ask you on this one, Eric, or?
Not yet, but
okay.
To be honest, I don't have a whole lot to say, because I'm married an editor. So
Oh,
I've got my editor forever.
So on your level, then you really gotta watch out for how much you let her push you, and vice versa.
Yeah, it's amazing
All
how
right.
many deadlines she lets me miss.
Yeah. Well,
So I think, to loop back around on this question though. So when I started with a very close friend of mine. He actually was one of my troops in the military. And so I was like, hey, I'm writing this book. He's like, hey, I can help you. And so he basically self-promoted himself into a development editor where he was helping me the whole way. But what he did was he trashed it. I mean, and he pushed me so much better to get to a point I never would have. Right. So he and I had this trust, and he really helped me with that initial part. But then as we went through the vetting process of the editors, there was some editors like Sean and Jez have said where, they took it and they were pushing too far. They took too much liberty. And I said, hey, you haven't earned the trust with me yet to take that liberty. Right. Whereas with the editor I picked, she was complimentary and she really complimented the vision. And just like Jez said, I started with a storyboard and I kept storyboarding for months to where I had more storyboard than I did for the manuscript. So I already knew the vision I had. And yeah, that person coming in and thinking that they knew what was going to happen, I was like, nope, immediate turn off. But I think Jez really hit it on the head there.
And TJ, I think that's a really good point too. It's not just about finding kind of that good editor or many good editors. It's you build relationships, or you can build relationships with them, and that relationship is going to affect their input as it goes on. Obviously, if you're starting out with an editor you don't know much about, you don't have that trust built, they're going to try to make the story better, but they may not, push you. But as they learn and grow and know your style and know your stuff, they're like, hey, I know this is a pitfall you fall into a lot. This is something I know you can do better. And they're going to be more honest too. I mean, it's like those editors we hear about, like probably Stephen King's editor probably edits them very differently than another word, because they've been with each other for many, many years and many books.
Right. I'll say one of my editors, Jenny, is my line editor. And when she's going through, it's a case of like literally I'm replacing her now because she's actually decided she wants to be an author full time rather than an editor. And that's the only reason I'm replacing her. It's literally a case of when I go through, when I'm reading through things, I'll add notes into my comments going, Jenny, do you agree with this? And she'll say yes or no. And I'll be like, fair enough, because she's earned that level of trust. And it's like, yeah, you know better. Some things, these are professionals. They really are. They make your book. We're throwing money at them because they're making our books better. If not, we wouldn't be throwing the fucking money at them.
Well, I think it's another part, there's a CEO of a company I was talking to just the other day because he was driving in my car as a client. And he said, in reality, as long as you have humility and you have maturity and security, you can adapt to everything. And so, the story was originally planted in my head 13 years ago. If I wrote the book 13 years ago, it would not be where it is because I wasn't mature enough and ready. Because when you're going through an editing process, as you guys know, it can be hard, right? And you could easily take it personal, but in reality, if you find the right person, they're going to help you make it better, and they're trying to help you become better as a writer as well. So,
yeah, definitely.
All right, so that's excellent. So we're gonna go ahead and keep on kind of on this thread a little bit. Over in the chat, Jesse asked, how hard is it to find a good artist for cover art? It looks like, and then wanted to change it up. And what are all you guys looking for in artists? So Eric, start with you on this one.
As far as cover art goes, I actually work with a cover designer. So I found someone who could design the whole cover and rely on them to farm the art out, because I realized I didn't know what I was looking for, and knew that they would have better contacts in that part of the world than I did. And so sometimes it's about understanding which part to delegate to, because when I was looking at artists, I had no idea how to talk to them in the way that they needed in order to get back what I needed in a timely fashion that also made sense for what I needed to do. Because the concept of cover is like that's your ultimate marketing tool. And the thought that you can just wing it because you have graphic design is foolish. And that is certainly something that I learned in the early days when I was publishing. There are people who are professionals at this, and there's a reason for that.
Muted.
Muted, Jay.
Hit the wrong mute on there. I got to mute on my phone too. Or, so Sean, what are you looking for?
I have not actually recently not had the best experience of getting cover designer. So mine's a little bit different in YA fantasy. In an easier way, you can often just take like a stock image with some pretty colors, maybe like mess with a little bit and kind of slap it on there and go. So I work with all cover designers. I don't work with anybody that does straight illustration. If I was writing something like Lit RPG or Epic Fantasy, where those illustrations are more expected, then I would probably be out searching a lot more for artists. That said, I do find it sometimes difficult because in my genre, like many genres, there are certain expectations for covers. And I've started to find that a lot of the designers in my genre are booked out months, if not literally years in advance. And so I had a really bad experience with my latest series coming out where I had this person booked for like 6 months. And she came in with a horrible design. And part of it is, what Eric was talking about. You learn as you design new covers, you learn what to say. You learn like, hey, this is what I kind of expect and what I'm kind of aiming for. But then you need to trust the designer to then take it that next step and know the market. So that's one important thing to look about is, does the designer know the market that you're going for? But I'm not going to take any blame for this one because I showed it to other people. She completely missed the mark, which pushed it on to somebody else who then canceled as well after 3 months. And the problem is there's just so few in the genre. So if you find a good designer that really matches the genre, really works well with you, I would say like snap them up and keep them if you can, because especially nowadays with so many authors kind of getting into it, it can be hard to find somebody that, they're not getting booked up, 6-7 months in advance.
Excellent. Jez, what are you looking for in an artist?
I'll be honest, I found my artists through ArtStation. So if you're looking for artists, for cover art, I would massively recommend that. There's a load of really, really good artists on there. And I must have reached out to 40 or 50, to be perfectly honest, before people got back to me. Some of the people that got back to me were people I really wouldn't have expected to. So if you don't pay attention, when you look through the stuff that they do, some of the people that are on there are, for example, the lead character or concept artist for LucasArts. So they're kind of busy. And if you go looking, you can see the stuff that's going to be coming out in Marvel films and stuff like that in the next few years. You can see the concept art for that. There are JD, but I'll come back to that in a second. The problem that I have with Fiverr is if you go through it, you design it with that person and it looks great. And then you decide, you farm it out to say 10 people and you pick one of those concepts and then you finish it off. That's great. The problem is then that those other 9 people will try and sell that same cover to other people. So you get to see something that looks very similar to your work that is almost identical is now on somebody else's, and it's totally legitimate because you didn't pick that cover. So personally, I wouldn't get anything from Fiverr. I've also had some bad experiences with artists that I've hired through it who've all been scammers. So, but that's personal.
Fiverr's hit or miss. I'll just jump in. It's
very much so, yeah. I've worked with a couple of different artists through, as I say, ArtStation, and I've had some fantastic experiences. I've had a couple of weirdos as well, but that's the way it is. I would say when you're doing cover art, be very specific. The more specific you are, the better. If you want I go looking for similar art, things that I want, concepts. I really like the armor from this. I really like the eyes on this. I really like this, and send them on to the artist and say, I like all of these things. And they go, okay, great. And then they'll come back. Usually the artist that I work with, Marco, comes back with a couple of samples and says, right, here's 4 different positions. What do you like here? Oh, well, I like A. Right, well, scrap B, C, D. And then he'll do A and he'll make some changes to that. And there'll be 3 or 4 iterations before the art's actually finished. And it gets to that point, though, when the art is right and you're looking at it and you go, and this is fantastic. I've got the actual sort of, not the cover art where it's got the typography, but just the art itself from Marco. I've got as my screensavers and stuff because I love them. They're brilliant.
Yep.
No, but how about you, TJ? What are you looking for in a cover artist for yours? Since you're up and coming, writing yours right now. So what are you looking for?
Yeah. Well, finding a good artist was the hardest part. And finding a good artist who was affordable was also huge, and it's not that I don't want to pay someone for their time and effort, right? Because to me, the artwork brings the story to life just so much more, just like a good voice actor. So I wanted to be sure to pay them and compensate them properly. But obviously, for me, I have 24 chapters in book one. I wanted some type of artwork at the end of each chapter to really move along, because book one is just slammed with so many characters, unfortunately. So there's Fiverr and there's so much information, but you're trying to really look through the crowd of people and find that source. I really just got lucky. I was using Reddit actually and going through subreddits looking for artists. Thankfully, the vast majority of people actually had their portfolio links through other websites. So I would look and I was like, okay, yeah, this is really good. This is really good. But I found this one post in Reddit who just said, hey, I'm open for commissions. Let me know if I can help you out. No links, no nothing. And I spammed multiple artists asking for, input. So I sent, Lauren a message. I just said, hey, do you have a link to your portfolio? Oh, just hit my Instagram. Okay, so I went to Instagram. I'm looking through his work, and it is incredible. It's blowing me away. But I think as some of us have probably known, how much of that is accurate, right? Is that really truthful? Because I tried some artists through Instagram. I paid them for, that character bust, and you get back something that is just complete garbage.
Yeah.
And of course, I feel bad. So I'm like, well, here, I'll pay the rest just so this photo never sees the light of day again, right? So I paid Lauren his 50% commission. And the other thing that I do for my artwork, PowerPoint and Snippet are your two best friends. So every single character has a character reference, and I'll find, hey, I love this leather armor. Here's a snippet, put it in PowerPoint on one page. And then if you just Google art poses, there's people with sketches of poses. So I'm like, this is the pose I want. This is what his armor should look like. Here's how his eyes should be. Here's the female actor, movie actor, or whatever that is kind of based off of them. And I give them as much information as possible. I'll try to give them an excerpt from the book that's describing him. And then I just await. And it's normally about a week that I get the rough sketch back. And Lauren's first one was Golgoth, right there. Incredible. It blew me away. And I just said, dude, here's the thing. You are my guy from here on out. And so the other thing I'll say is Lauren started out as a tattoo artist. Mm-hmm. So if you guys are looking for outside the box, go to a tattoo shop, look and see what other artists are out there, because they're used to drawing and sketching all those things. And so that's how I found Lauren. Lauren was doing my black and whites, and then I found Miriam, who also does all my coloring. Same thing. I just randomly stumbled across her. So if there's people who need artwork like that, hit me up on the page, the book's Facebook page, and I will get you connected, because they're still taking commissions. But the same thing there. Lauren is actually out of Brazil. Miriam is out of Turkey. Both of them came in way under budget from what I expected. So I give them bonuses as much as I can to say thank you so much for the work. So, but I mean, that was trying out maybe 10 or 12 artists before I really found Lauren was the guy that I wanted.
Yeah, I'd just quickly jump on with that one with cover art. My original ones cost a quarter of what I'm paying now for my cover art. And I am totally fine with that, simply because the cover artist I have now, I mean, there was Chris that did my original cover art. Sod off, cat. God's sake, you always fucking picks the wrong time. Chris that did my original cover art got a job with Magic the Gathering, so that wasn't going to happen anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So looking around at other people, some of the quotes that came in, the vast majority were around, for the kind of level I wanted, the kind of quality I wanted, were around $1,000 to $1,200. Marco that I work with now is more expensive than that, but it's worth every goddamn penny, and I'm paying for his time essentially and his skill. And at the end of the day, it's worth it. It comes down to what you want to spend on it. You can find amazing artists, as I say, that are charging massively under what they can get because they quite enjoy this kind of stuff. Some of the concept artists that I've gotten in touch, exactly, Kyle, thanks, man.
Yes.
And every time,
everyone loves Jess's pussy, so let's go with that.
some some of the people that I reached out to on ArtStation got back to me, and they wanted a couple of $100. That was all they wanted, because they wanted this as something to do for a laugh and to do outside of their normal jobs as a palate cleanser. So there are amazing artists that you can find. Just,
I would say also the biggest thing too is when you're looking for an artist to really represent your work, talk about the commercial rights. Just pay up front, get the commercial rights, because that's where like these things, they're so beautiful. I want to sell them as posters to help compensate cost, but your artist needs to be cool with that up front. So make sure you have that conversation. And yeah, you may be paying an extra $300, right? Or $500. But if your book takes off and you're going to cons and you're selling these posters, you're going to make up your money in the long run. It's just going to hurt in the initial cost.
Yeah. I'd suggest a work for hire contract.
Yep.
It's literally called, and it changes the rules around in that I've paid for this, therefore it is mine. As opposed to the cat just knocked my can off the side there. As opposed to if you just hire a normal, just do a normal contract, the artist owns that. Even though you've paid for it and it's your creation, it's your vision and everything else, they actually own the art still. They're just licensing it to you to use. So be aware of that.
So with that point, then, just what you're saying then is, would you still have to pay them royalties for cover art ongoing?
No, but it's a case of if you've agreed that it's going to be your cover art, then it's just your cover art. If you want to use it for something else, you have to ask them permission. And then if they turn around and go, yeah, you can, for another $200. Okay, well, I want to use it on T-shirts, so I'm going to pay that $200. I can use it on posters as well, can't I? No, that's another $100.
Okay.
And they can do this. So
cool. So let's go and keep going on this thread right now. So Brian asked over here in the chat, with the growing costs of quality art, editing, etc., what advice would you give to the authors? There it is. With their first manuscript, looking to self-publish. His reader expectations have evolved with the genre, and cheap editing and covers will stick out in a bad way. And that's true. I've seen some pretty bad covers been popping up in the different chat groups. So.
I could start real quick because that's a really good question, and it's really good that you're like thinking about that, because there are a lot of people that, whether they don't either know enough or they just don't have the means to, and they put out like lower quality product. I would say I can only give like my experience of what it was. I couldn't afford an editor up until like a few years ago, and I started out with literally when I was a lot younger. My mom started editing. It was my family. And then it moved up to friends that I had in the industry. And then it moved up to beta readers. And then it moved up to editors. And so you were just try to use who you are able to. But I would say with that caveat is, if you are going to be using people, use people that actually know the genre you're writing in, and use people that are going to give you solid feedback. With the cover art, the problem is with covers, it is your biggest marketing tool. So you want it to be good quality. And if you can try to save up for that, that good quality artwork or that good quality cover. And if that means you have to save up for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, use that time to write the next book or something, because you don't want to put out that low quality cover. Editing, if you can get a good professional like copy edit or line edit on there, that's great. If you can get somebody that knows knows story, that can say, hey, this is garbage, or you need to change this, that's great too. You kind of make that work. But the cover especially is really important. You have a dog too. You just have a whole zoo over there.
Yeah. Just to hop on to talk about that in terms of covers, because a lot of what we do is series based. A lot of times you can find an artist who's willing to give you a prorated amount based on doing variations on your cover to handle a series. So you're not having to do brand new full artwork, full cover for every single book. You're just doing something that's mildly different. And that can be a great way to minimize your costs. And also don't sleep on pre-made covers. There's a lot of fantastic pre-made covers out there. And for your first book, that may be what you want to do. Because you can be looking at maybe spending $100 as opposed to $1,000 to get a cover done.
Jazz, TJ, you want to chime in on this one? Or?
TJ, do you want to go first?
What's our question again?
Cutting costs on your first self-published book, editing.
Oh man, cutting costs.
Yeah. Well, what advice would you give to authors with the growing costs? There it is again.
Oh, gotcha.
Thank you, Geneva.
So I look at this kind of from an investment standpoint. So for me, I at least was pretty good with saving money. And when I decided to step up to the plate and really push for this, I knew that I was going to be at least spending $10,000 out of my own pocket before potentially ever selling a book, right? Because I was going to go at it for the long haul, and that was to include paying for a voice actor. So I just saved up money, and I think Sean hit it really on the head, is especially for the art piece, if you're having to wait, man, go through the manuscript again, because I've gone through this manuscript like 5-6 times, and every time I still look at it like, you are an embarrassment to your family. This is complete dog shit, you know? And so it just gives you more time, because when we look at things in life, everything is better over time, and the longer it takes to develop it and refine it. I think we're so used to this instant. And I know even for me, I've had to fight it where it's like, I just want to publish it. But at the same time, I always have to take a step back and say it's worth it in the long run, because I want to give someone a better quality product. I don't want to rush the process. So I would not necessarily cut costs, but if you're not able to achieve necessarily something on the financial end with what you want, can you find the next best thing that you can afford? I would say maybe one of the ways I looked at this was, as soon as I heard Nick Padell speak, I was like, that's my guy. Like, he is my Michael Jordan. Not saying he's the best voice actor, but he was the one that inspired me to want to have an audiobook. And after trying to get a hold of Nick and get on his 5-year waiting list, I finally had to come to the point of saying, you know what? Maybe I don't need a Michael Jordan. Maybe I need a Kobe Bryant. Maybe I need someone else who can really come and capture the book's spirit with me. And this will help propel their career as well. And that's how I found Peter Wicks, where it's like, you know what, Peter, you've gotten the job. Let's go on this together. And so, yeah, it's saved a little bit of money, but I think maybe you would have to come to the point of asking yourself, how bad do I want this? And how much quality do I really want to put into this, where I myself can be content and satisfied with the product? Because if you're not proud of your own work, you're the one who's going to not be happy with it more than anyone else. So,
yeah. I'd agree with that. I would add a caveat to that too, though. When I was first writing, I asked for advice from some other authors, and Luke Chemlenko was one who said to me, release your book when you fucking hate it. So basically, write your book again and again and again until you get to that point where you either want to burn it or release it. Because if you're loving it and you're going, I could just do, the problem you have is you start out and you write 10,000 words, 100,000 words, whatever it is. And word one is never going to be the same quality as word 100,000, because you've learned so much. Every word you type, you know, let's say it's 0.001% skill improvement. So all the way through, you are improving. So you get to the very end of it and you go, I'll have a quick look through, start again and go, oh, I could just change that and I can tweak this and I can make it better. And you will never stop. You'll keep going, because as you improve, getting to the end of the book again, you start again.
That's true.
Yep. Perfection is the enemy of done.
Yes. I never ever read a published book, like my own published books. Yeah. I'll just rip them apart.
Yeah, I gotta jump in here with Eric just said. Perfection is the enemy of done. Yeah, people need to realize that you're never gonna find perfect. You're never gonna write to perfect. You're never gonna create perfect. Yep. Perfection isn't the destination you're going for. Perfection is your journey.
Yeah.
As you build it, you're going to grow and change and become the perfect for what that is. But it's never going to be the absolute ideal for what you thought from day 1 to day 100. It's going to be totally different. It's the journey, not the.
Well, and I think it's also important to differentiate these two concepts of commercial writing and artistic writing. As if you are writing purely for the art of writing and trying to create this ultimate artistic expression, that's a very different animal and ball game than if you are trying to have a commercial expression. So if you're doing a commercial, you need to be publishing. You need to have the minimum viable product. And I'm not saying it's garbage. I'm trying to say it's the minimum that you would be comfortable giving to someone you care about and saying, this is a book that I have published. So, but you also can't sit there and spend 8 years trying to polish the first chapter so it's absolute perfection. I'm saying
That's
to
it.
anyone, if you're not going to be able to publish because you can't get Nick Podell, then yeah, maybe look for somebody else. Maybe, say that's going to be the next series. If you're writing one book, you're going to have to do a whole lot to make that one book matter. But if you accept that you're writing a lot of books, you can do a next series. You can do a next book. There's lots of time that you can wait to hit that perfect book out of the park. And meanwhile, you are publishing and generating more content, and you are learning.
Yeah,
That's a
my
great.
first
definitely.
book. Yeah, my first book, Brightblade. One of the reviews that I got was saying this is basically fan fiction and it's crap, essentially. Let's just be honest here. When I've read through it, when I read through it, I was like, "Oh, so you're a baby author, you hurt." But I read through it, and I went through with that in mind, and some of the other comments, and I went through Brightblade, and I saw a lot of the points they were making, and some of it was some of the reviews you get, you go, "I totally fucking disagree. Piss off." While other ones, you read it and you go, "You know what? You're right on the button there." And essentially, I believed at that point that Brightblade was the best book that I could write at that stage of my career, and I released it. And I stand by that, and I enjoyed it, and I built my career, so it was obviously okay at the time. Since then, I've gone back and I've redone the first series from scratch, rewritten a lot of the scenes from scratch, and I spent like over 30,000 on it in editing. It's been like this 8-month project, and I'll probably never make that back, and I'm totally fine with that, because now the version that's out there is a version that I much prefer. I would not recommend that people do that normally, because obviously you keep going back and redoing your stuff, it's always going to end up badly for you. But one of the things that really justified the whole thing for me, the original reviewer that left me that review that said, basically this is fan fiction, it's a good imagination, but it's just not worth it as it is. If you pay for it, you're your own fool type of thing. Left a review on the omnibus and said, "You know what, this is fantastic. You've taken all the comments on board and you've fixed it and you've made a much better one. Thanks very much." And gave me a 5-star rating rather than a 1. And that massively made me feel better about things.
Right.
But it comes back to, again, what we were saying about editors. Some of this, the views there, when I read through, I went, yeah, that's genuine. Okay, I can understand that and I can fix it. You have other people that have gotten in touch. I've got reviewers that have gotten in touch and said, "I don't like the way that you've had this character speak, or the fact that 2 male characters held hands. So if you go back through and you edit it out and you change this and do this instead, I'll consider leaving you a review on your next book." And, that's very much... thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. No, but they are taken with a pinch of salt. Some of your reviews will be harsh. Some reviews you will read it and you'll go, "Oh, you bastards." And others you'll go, "That's really fair. I really wish it wasn't, but it's fair." Yeah. And it helps you to improve. And I know that wasn't actually the question, but fuck it. That's
okay, because it actually lets us segue right into the next question, which is right here. So review counts can make or break a book to a degree if you want to let them, in my opinion. What is your best advice to get people to leave reviews? Ask them to leave reviews. Okay.
Yeah. Have that should be on the very first page. They finish the book. The next page should say, "Hey, thanks. Here's the place to buy the next book. Here's the place to leave a review. Please do so. It's very helpful." Blah, 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 blah. Those 2 calls to action should be right there on that page. There should be as few barriers between the reader finishing the book and buying your next one or leaving a review for that one.
And I would add too, like, if you can, maybe not even the last page, like do like a paragraph break right after the final sentence and put it there, because sometimes in Amazon's Kindle they'll pop up their thing, which sometimes will have the rating, but sometimes may distract the reader.
That is so annoying. I hate that.
So if you're able to like get in there before Amazon pops up that thing and get them to that link to the review, that can work as well.
That's a good point, because I've had that myself, where you get to the end of the book, next page, and then it goes, "Oh, you might also like," and it's Amazon's bit. And if you go back to it, then you'll see the stuff that the author's left behind. But if you don't go back, you won't. I would recommend, as I said there, simply talking to people in Facebook, to say, "Hey, I read your book. I really enjoyed it. Oh, thanks very much. Did you leave a review? I'd really appreciate it if you don't mind." That's it.
People don't mind being asked, and if they do, then they're, that's on them.
Well, it's funny psychology. If you have a one-on-one conversation, you just put it right there and say, "Hey, will you leave a review?" Statistically, you're going to get a yes, then a no. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask those people for it.
Yeah, asking is free. So here's another from Kylan Wilkinson over here. How much do you spend on average on publishing a book? So you should also have some different numbers going on this one. Whoever wants can just jump in.
I think for me, it's less than $1,000 a book. I think it's closer in the 700 range for me.
Wow. I don't have to get, so the artwork, I don't have to do artwork, custom artwork. I do, like I said, kind of stock images that are, heavily modified, that sort of thing. So my covers range from, I think the last one I paid for was like $450 to I'm getting an even more kind of custom design on the next one, which is going to be running about like $750, $800, which is on the higher end for me. Cause you can, for my genre, you can get like really good covers for around the $300 to $500 range. So between that and editing, and then I consider kind of like marketing, kind of the initial push as part of the production cost. I mean, it can be anywhere from $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, and I know that's on the lower end for some, but it's grown over the years as well.
Jez, what kind of numbers are you looking at on this one?
My books are fairly large. They're sort of the smallest of them is around 200,000 words. So most of my books are around the 10,000 range. I spend like $2.5K on my cover art, another 150 or so on typography. Editing is probably around the 6,000 mark. They're about 7,000. I will add, as I do, another caveat on that, which it wouldn't be anywhere near as high if it wasn't for the fact that I am shit at grammar. So I view it as the people that fix my editing. Basically, I write the book. I write all in one go. Then I do a single editing pass to put in any changes I need and to make sure I'm happy with the book. And then I send it to my editors and go, fix that. So as far as I'm concerned, they deserve that money. Because people, you would not like to read what I finish.
Yeah, I've been given little pieces of some of your early stuff before edits by one of your editors. Just little blurbs, so no spoilers. Good God, man.
Yeah. To be fair, that editor it does my continuity, I believe, and he does it checking math as well. So just for shits and giggles, because I'm that kind of a person, I occasionally change the numbers around just to fuck with them. So
we know, yeah, I know that one. So, no, I was talking just about your grammar. TJ, what about you, man? What kind of costs are you incurring on?
So when I originally budgeted and projected for my book, I just said it could reach the 20,000 range, specifically because I knew I wanted an audiobook done and I wanted a massive experience. And also market research shows that audiobooks and podcasts are looking to quadruple in content within the next 4 years. More and more people are looking for audiobooks availability because of how easy they are to listen to and continue to enjoy. So I was like, hey, this is the route of the future for this type of content. And we're even seeing things like Spotify come on board now with radio programs and books and things like that. So I knew $10,000 at least for the audiobook was probably what it was going to be.
The 10,000 to me.
So right now, book one, when the audiobook will be done, is about $10,000 total. That's with editing, but mostly the artwork. And the reason why it's also at 10,000 and not more is because I found really great artists that were extremely under budget for their quality. So I just lucked out. But yeah, that's what I'm looking at for numbers, honestly.
Okay. So those kind of a range for what you're talking about. So we just a question just.
But I'm single, so I'm looking to find myself an editor wife as well. So that will help on the cost.
Hey, there you go. All right, so I got a teacher wife, so I may sucker her into mine. But no, we just popped up a question there from Demetrius, and it's very important. It digs into that. How much do you spend on alcohol per book?
You would be surprised.
With you, no, I wouldn't.
Just to quickly chuck one thing in that I hadn't mentioned before when we were talking about the last about the cost of books. If you do, as I do, I mean, you don't have to do it as TJ has and pay for it yourself and do your audio yourself. If you go with somebody like Podium or Tantor, then essentially you are, be aware you are handing over a lot of the control, and you are handing over 60, 70, whatever your percentage is. You're getting like 30, 40, 50%. But you get paid by the publisher rather than it costing you. So if you think, oh, well, look, as I have each time, I thought I'm not going to spend on average, I think it's about $500 per finished hour. So if you've got a book that you're saying, well, this is going to be 20 hours, that's $10,000 straight away. If you've got a series coming and you think, well, this series is going to be 200 hours, 500 hours, whatever it is, and you look at that cost, that's going to cost you a fuck ton of money.
Yeah.
You do have the option of Podium, Tantor, other groups as well, to give you the money first instead as an advance, and then you might make it back, you might not. You know, you might lose a load of money because, hey, it's an instant win and it makes loads and loads of money, and you go, I'm only getting 40% of this. But they also advertise it, they also do stuff like that. I have gone down that route because I don't need to be stressed. I just go, there you go. Because I have no stress in my life being married and having children.
And yeah, that's the big thing for me, is that it's somebody else who's doing it. That's they are paying me in time and money. Because I feel like the best thing you can do for your author career is to write another book. There's no better marketing than another book. Yeah.
There we go. All right, so we're getting down about 10 minutes here. So pop this one up here from Jesse Garney. What's the... Okay, I think Jess has been typing for this person. What is the difference between having your Patreon readers proofread your work versus professional editors? And I'm gonna throw into onto that one. Even your beta readers or alpha reader cores, whatever you want to call them, on that one.
I'd say it's massive. I have my Patreon guys have access to my stuff well in advance, and they'll point out things and say, hey, this doesn't make sense, and I'll change things. And that's really, really helpful, some of the stuff they've pointed out. But then it goes to the editors. And then once the editors have had their time, then it goes to my beta readers. It's in that order very much. The editors are the ones who make the vast majority of fixes because they're professionals. Some of the comments you get on Patreon, as much as these guys are helping you out, and I really appreciate my Patreon guys, to be clear, some of their comments aren't helpful. It's what they think personally. These are professionals, so...
Jez, that's actually something I was just about to ask you, is have you seen where your Patreon readers become like personally attached to some characters and they're almost like, dude, no, don't do this. Like, I want to see him do this. Like, well, he's not your character, he's mine, but you know, you got to let it happen. All right.
That explains why you've killed off a few characters, Jess.
Yeah, well, I just sort of say, what's your favorite character besides the main one?
I think the other big thing too, in addition to what Jez was saying, you know, professional editors definitely catch a lot more stuff and catch different stuff. I think the biggest thing is, even though sometimes beta readers or alpha readers will catch things, they may know something is wrong, but they don't know how to fix it. Whereas a professional editor may both know when something is wrong and how to fix it. I've had a lot of beta readers who are like, it just kind of, you know, it seemed off. And I was like, well, you know, what do you think it was? I don't know. It just seemed off. And it's like, all right, well, that's good to know. But also, like, I'd love a little kind of nudging in the right direction to help me start brainstorming. So I think that's pretty invaluable.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also important to differentiate the types of editors, right? So at the beginning, there's developmental editors. They're the people who are going to help you with the overall story of your book. And then you move into line editors who are helping you with grammar and the flow of that. And then finally, you have proofreaders. And the proofreaders are the people who are saying, you've misspelled this word here. You have an extra period here. And there are 3 spaces when you should have 1 space. You have 4 dots in the ellipse instead of 3. Like, they're all different things. And those people who are doing it, then you should know, like, those people are professionals at what they do. And so there's a greater level of trust, especially for proofreaders. Like, I trust the proofreaders to actually catch everything. And if they don't catch something, then I can feel angry. Whereas if someone who is just proofing it for fun, like, I can't say anything if they miss something.
I have sort of a core of about 8 proof beta readers who do it for me for free, who are very generous, and I send them signed books for it, and they catch 99% of the errors that are there. And I really wish when I first started I had that team together, but it's something that you build over time. Some people that want to come in and be beta readers and ARC readers for you are crap at it, and some of them are fantastic. You've just got to try and build your team. It takes time.
Well, I think that's something maybe you guys can talk about, being actually published now and having built the team. Is the building the team is probably one of the hardest things when you're first starting. Hey, I need beta readers. You have 30 people. Oh, sure, I'll beta read, and you hear back from 1, right, or 2 or 3. And a lot of the times it's just, dude, if you hate it, tell me you hate it. Tell me you couldn't even finish it because it was so bad. Give me some type of feedback. But sometimes you only get that 3 people, that 10%. To build the team with, but
so we're just about out of time, just a couple more minutes. So I'm gonna ask you guys, what is the one piece of advice you would give to someone who's wanting to get into writing a lit RPG and self-publishing like you guys are doing? The one biggest piece of advice you can give them.
Just write every day. It doesn't matter if you write a page, a sentence. Don't take 6 months off and then think you can pick up exactly where you were. If you do take 6 months or more off, go back to the beginning and read everything up to that point. But try and write just a little bit every day, because you'd be amazed how fast it mounts up.
I would say it would be to finish a draft of everything you start. So get to where you write the end. You don't have to polish it. You don't have to make it absolutely perfect, but get to where you're writing the end, because you just don't understand a story until you see the whole thing together.
Okay. I'll just add in general, kind of just writing, is try to find that intersection between writing to market and what you're passionate about. I know there are a lot of authors that they'll just write straight to market and they're just not enjoying it. And I think if you can find something that you enjoy doing, but also learn the market, because that's important to know. Learn what's working. Learn what other authors are doing that's making them successful, and try to kind of find where your passion aligns with that.
So I'm basically going to copy Jez here, but so I haven't filled it in, but this is what my calendar looks like, right? So for me, it's about the routine. I try to do 4 positive habits throughout the week, right? Can I get some type of weight in, whether it's 5 minutes or an hour? Can I walk, run, or jog? And again, if you only have 5 minutes, that's 5 more minutes than what you had. Can I write and can I read? And the reading is audiobooks, physical books, or podcasts, some type of receiving to keep me grounded in some things. So having the routine, if you can have the routine, that is a huge thing for getting yourself going. Because again, like Jez said, hey, I only got a page in today. Well, that's one less page you have to write tomorrow. I got a chapter in today. That's awesome. Keep the momentum going. And the second thing I would say is, I know I kind of went one direction earlier in one of the questions. Christina Grimmie, she's a famous artist that I loved. She was up and coming, and then she was tragically murdered by a deranged fan. She said, confidence is not, will they like it? Confidence is, even if they don't like it, I'm going to be okay. And so have the confidence that you're not going to please everyone. You're going to have haters. You're going to have critiquers that think you're complete trash. But for me, if I just have one positive impact in one person's life, that's my only goal. So have the confidence and don't quit on yourself.
I would also just like to add in as well that we are all here. It's a case of, look, you can join writers groups, you can join the Lit RPG groups. There's a group on Facebook called 20 Books to 50K. I don't agree with all the stuff they say in it. Some of the stuff is fantastic, some of the advice is bollocks, but it comes down to the fact that everybody does things differently. The stuff that works for me and that worked for me when I launched will not work for somebody else. Not because of anything they would do wrong, but because it's a different time. That was only 2 years ago. So some of the stuff that you will see as advice is, some of it's crap, some of it's brilliant, but don't get downhearted. Literally join these groups and you'll see that you can do it. I failed school, and I don't mean like by a little bit. I failed. I mean, my highest grade was C, and that's on an A to U mark. Most of my marks were U, as unmarkable. I failed school completely. I was a fucking welder. I hit steel and I burned steel for a living. I'm published. If I can do it, you can fucking do it. Everybody, as Brian says, there's no correct way up the mountain. It just matters that you get there.
There you go.
Don't give up. Just keep trying. That's the best advice I can give you.
All right, guys. Looks like our time is up here. So, still got the after party going on tonight over in the Discord. Geneva, can you go ahead and throw a link for him on that one? And it's been great hanging out, talking with all four of you guys. It's definitely turned up the heat on mine. So I'm gonna be going back into the writing. So we got more panel. I think we got more panels tonight. We got more panels the next 3-4 days. So I know I'm doing one tomorrow as well, and all kinds of these guys are going to be all over. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will catch you on the next panel, guys.
Yep.
Awesome.
Thanks,
everyone.
Thank you, Jay. Thanks for
Thank
doing
you,
this.
Jay. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's awesome meeting. It's awesome meeting the other three, and Jez already know, so it's freaking awesome. It's great. So more networking.
Hey guys.